You talk about your father doing something which I didn't think it was possible to do, but that there was an active black market in the 90s because things were so bad. I guess I want to figure this out. Did China stop subsidizing North Korea in the 90s? Why did things get, I mean, things have been very, very bad for a very long time, but it was even more difficult in the 90s. So a black market developed.
Right, so here we often say, socialism only works until you run out someone else's money, right? So it was that case for North Koreans. Socialism kind of worked until the late 80s because our economy was heavily subsidized by Soviet Union and China, and then Soviet Union collapsed, right? So they stopped helping North Korea, and the regime could not find any more a subsidy for the people. And until that moment, we are a socialist paradise. We have free healthcare, free education, free housing, free public ration. And then 90s, Kim Jong-il hear about starvation, and then people saying what are you gonna do? People are dying. And then he thought, actually, it's easy to do socialism when you have less people. It's easy to control people when they're less. So why don't you let them die? So he decided to keep only 10% population who are in capital. It's like Hunger Games, right? There's a district and there's a capital. So that capital people are loyal to me. So in North Korea, again, we have 3 different main classes. We are a homogeneous country. We speak the same language, but regime divided us into 3 classes. First class is royal. They call them tomato. You are red outside and inside. That means you are true communist. Middle class is called apple. You are red outside, but inside is white, so you're questionable. You need a surveillance. Remaining is completely screwed people. You're grape. You're not even red outside. So they call them hostile class. So 3 these classes, they divide them into another 51 classes. In the same people in the socialist paradise where everybody should be equal. And based on that classes, they decide who gets fed, who dies from starvation. So we were living in the countryside, we were not in capital. And that's why in the 90s, the massive famine began and millions of people died because of that.
Millions of people died from starvation.
Yeah, more than 3.5 million from 1995 to 1998 when I was a toddler.
It's unbelievable. I assume you've heard about the starvation in the Ukraine in the 1930s. It's a similar
man-made, yeah.
thing, man-made killing via starvation. But the idea that this happened in the lifetime of those of us sitting here in North Korea is horrifying. So what did your father do to augment what you had?
So he decided to trade. And this is why I learned later why all these communist countries stopped the market. Because if the individuals start trading for themselves, they really learn to think for themselves.
This is a big piece of information. When I read that, I thought that's an amazing insight. When people start trading, when there's some kind of a market, it teaches people to think for themselves.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons that the regime is against any
Trading
kind of market or trading.
And then, so my father went to black market, and you say black market, seems like selling drugs and weaponries. Black market in North Korea means you're selling dried fish, clocks and batteries and clothes. That's how he got into, selling dried fish and selling rice in the black market. That's how he fed me.
That's how he fed you, and your sister, and your mother.
Yeah.
And how did the regime look the other way a little bit because they knew that we can't feed these people?
The regime did not look away, but the officials did. So officials are unbelievably corrupt. North Korea is the most corrupt countries. And if you go to any socialist country, it's so corrupt, right? Even Soviet Union, they had to bribe the doctor to see the doctor. And North Korea like that. If you don't bribe the doctor, they would refuse to operate on you. they will not save you, even if you die. So like the officials were receiving bribes from my father and letting him do the business.
So you talk about this, that it's a system of tremendous corruption. I mean, it's hard for us to imagine. But your father was, in a very limited way, thriving for a little while.
Yeah.
How old were you when things were going relatively well? I say relatively because they weren't going well, but compared to others in North Korea.
When I was 6, 7, I ate 3 times a day. And for North Korean standard, that's like out of this world. I did not eat steak or like meat, but I ate some grains and kimchi. Do you guys know what kimchi is? Yeah. So I ate kimchi and some grains 3 times a day, and that was very luxurious.
And what happened to your father that this period ended? It was no longer possible for him to do that.
When I was almost turning 9, he got caught, and he was at the time selling precious metals like nickel, copper, and he got caught and he was sent to labor camp for that.
That was a very daring thing for him to do, and you describe it in the book. And I do mean it, folks, when I say that the first book that Yeonmi wrote, In Order to Live, this is like mandatory. I'm begging every one of you to read this book because you need to know the details. You'll see when you read it. You describe that things were so desperate that your father didn't care that he's doing something tremendously risky. He knew he can lose his life when he goes to this next level, because first he's trading simple things, but then
into metal.
He has to, and I think, do you say that he used the smuggling became very dangerous? He was using the railroad car of the dear leader.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
So in North Korea, train, like every train is funny. One country to one country in South Korea takes 2 hours from one end to end. North Korea takes more than a month because trains, like we don't have electricity. A lot of times people have to push the train to move, right? So literally, it's like, I remember my job was going to a train station to find out when train arrives. And I had to walk to the train station for like an hour. And here the train comes in a week and never comes in a week. So in that, whenever that train runs, one cargo has dedicated to carry the things for the dictator in Pyongyang. So that cargo is like, literally in North Korea, they draft young girls called the pleasure squad. And there are 3 groups of pleasure squad. One is a satisfactory group, where you perform sex act to the dictator and the officials. Second is a happiness group, where you give them massage and acupuncture. Third one is a dance and singing. But below that 3 group is like subgroup is not quite pretty enough, but you're still good looking. These girls are recruited in these different resorts around the country, more than 2,000 of them. Kim Jong-un has his own private resorts. They wait their entire year, raise pigs and porks, and hand massage these animals. Because anything that fits to dictator has to be special, most like care, thing. They have to like water plants different way. So this cargo ship was taking those precious things to the dictator, and my father used that cargo to carry the metals. And that's why it was so dangerous.
So it's a simple issue of corruption. If you bribe the right people, you're okay.
Kind of. A certain limit.
Yeah.
Certain limit.
But that's the magic, was that if you can bribe the right people. And so eventually your father was caught.
Yeah.
And what happened?
I mean, North Korea, we don't have a word for lawyer. We don't know what that is.
You don't have a word for lawyer?
Yeah, I never knew. You don't like defend. How do you defend anybody? So he got arrested, and I heard he went through an unbelievable amount of torture and then sent to prison camp. So there's no trial or like anything like that. In North Korea, we don't have internet. We don't write emails, like we don't write letters, nothing works. So I just didn't ever get to see him afterwards for a long time.
When you were 11, you started trading yourself.
Yeah.
You entered business as an 11-year-old.
Uh-huh.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So my very first attempt to survive in North Korea was bribing the guard in the orchard. I gave
In the
him
orchard?
Yeah, North Korean moonlight. This very murky drink, alcohol that you make. And then I bought it and gave it to the orchard guard. And then I bought the persimmons. I carried them and then sold them in the black market.
So you bribed the orchard guard with alcohol, but you had to use money to get the alcohol.
My mom lent me money.
to pay for the alcohol, to bribe the orchard guard, to get a few persimmons to sell.
Yeah, but my mom shut down the business because I had to walk the orchard, right? And it miles, takes like 6 hours to walk there and come back 6 hours. So my shoes would run off. My mom is like, the money you're making not even enough for me to buy you a pair of shoes. So she eventually shut down the business.